All right, here we are for another episode of Mendle's Musings. Today's date is November the 27th, 2023. And I'm Vicki Werneke here with Reverend Dr. Mendle Adams, and we're going to discuss Advent traditions today. As most people who are Christians, Protestants, as we are, we celebrate the weeks leading up until Christmas Eve and the celebration of the birth of Jesus in the time called Advent. And we've had a long tradition in the family of doing different things. So, and to start off with, Dad, I was going to show you my sweatshirt. Let me bring this down a little bit. I made this sweatshirt a little over 25 years ago.
Oh goodness, Vicki.
When came to spend the weekend with Mom when she turned 60. I was 35 and she turned 60, and we did a crafting weekend because that was at the beginning of her back problems and she wasn't feeling the great, but we had such a fun weekend doing all kinds of different crafts, doing
Done with stamps?
No, it was an iron-on transfer, and then it was painted. We did painting on it, and it was so much fun. And we also did do stamps. We stamped some cards. We did some of those doormats with the fabric through to
Yeah.
spell out like Noel and stuff. We probably made peanut brittle or some, we probably did stuff like that, but I just remembered it was a really fun weekend, just the two of us.
That was when we were in High Point?
Yes, you were still at High Point. Yes. We talked about coming out with the kids to celebrate her birthday, and she just didn't have the energy to deal with the kids. And, that was a sign that she really wasn't feeling good because we know how much she loved being around the grandkids.
And you can understand that a little bit right now.
I can, yes, I can definitely understand it. And we went out to eat at that restaurant that was on the water there in Cincinnati, I think.
Oh, actually, it was in Covington.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Yep, and I have a picture somewhere of the six of us, and we also had our family portraits done of the six of us.
Yes.
Hadn't had a family portrait of just the six of us in years, and we did that as part of her Christmas or part of her birthday. So anyway, just wanted to share that memory with you all. Okay, Dad. So what is kind of the tradition of Advent in the church?
Well, I thought from a little bit different standpoint.
Okay.
Having grown up in the only we didn't celebrate Advent as such in my home growing up. My folks were Christian, but they were part of that holiness tradition, which was not a liturgical church. It did not follow uh, the Christian calendar. Uh, Easter, yes. Good Friday, yes. Christmas, yes. But otherwise, it didn't try to make any sense. So, in some sense, we were really secular as when it came to the holidays, and when the department stores started playing "Here Comes Santa Claus, Here Comes Santa Claus," we went along with that kind of stuff, and when it got to be that time, they would start singing some of the old Christmas carols during the church service. Uh, didn't wait like in a liturgical church. You hold off on singing the Christmas carols until the nativity, until the birth of Jesus. So until until the last Sunday of Advent, and then you begin to celebrate the Christmas season for 2 to 4 weeks, depending upon how the calendar goes. And but but we didn't do that. That was seen as kind of Catholic,
Oh,
and they understood that. They were very careful about not lighting candles in the church because that was what the Catholics did. And there was a big kerfuffle in that holiness church when one of the ministers, his daughter got married, and they lit candles, and they just about ran him out of town because that was too Catholic. Even though when your mother and I were married in that Pilgrim Holiness Church, we had candelabras and they lit candles. And I just,
yeah.
I don't know how that,
There's no rhyme or reason to what they were doing, right?
yeah, right. It just had to do with, well, that would look nice, that kind of thing. But my mother, when they started playing the Christmas music in the stores, and then we started singing the uh, Christmas songs at school, my mother would get out her little um, candles that were electric candles, and there was one that had like 7 candles on the thing, and she had little blue light bulbs in them, and she would put them up in the window, and she told us that this was to light the way to the Holy Family so they could find a place for shelter, and that was her way of doing that. So uh, we we did have, oh, I don't know, probably a month, maybe a month and a half of those lights in the window, and I always look forward to it because that meant that Christmas was coming, and we were going to get some Christmas gifts and so forth. The folks told us the story of the birth of Jesus, and they were very astute in doing that, even though we were not affiliated with the church in a formal way until I was like 12 years of age when they finally uh, got to where they weren't backslidden anymore. And they got back into the church. So, and it wasn't your mother come from that same uh, theological religious background. So that's sort of what we did. And
Well, did you have a Christmas tree when you were growing up?
yes, yeah, my folks did. Now, Ruth's folks did not.
Oh,
Uh, I put the first Christmas tree in their home.
I remember you telling me that. Yeah.
Yeah, Paul and I decided, by golly, we're going to have a Christmas tree, and we went out and got a Christmas tree and put it up. And I had a little somebody give me a gag gift, gave me a little porcelain uh, African American doll. It was kind of a racist thing, and I put a angel outfit on that little African American doll and hung it on the tree. I said every tree has to have an angel, and so that was my angel that I put on the tree. Well, JC didn't like it, and he caused a big kerfuffle about it. But Lola out
Oh,
and said no, the kids have done that. That's what they're going to do. And
oh,
but that
interesting.
was, yeah, yeah. Uh, so, they weren't like Jehovah's Witnesses. They'd have trees and the decorations in the church and that kind of stuff for the season, but they just did not have a tree in their home. My folks had always had a tree in the home, made a big to do about decorating the tree, and everybody got involved in decorating the tree.
But you
And
were also allergic to real Christmas trees.
Yeah, and I think I found out just last week what that's all about. I saw a thing on the television that was warning you about mold that was on Christmas
Oh,
trees, and they explained what it was, and I said, "Well, that's the symptoms that I had."
well,
So
and
I had an allergy to the mold that was on those trees.
Peter
Had
has
the
the
tree
same
in place.
allergy. Peter has that same allergy. Remember we figured that out because
Oh yeah.
Wow.
And Charlene and I last night we were talking about that, and because I told her about what we were going to do, and I was telling her about how disappointed I was when I felt like I couldn't have a Christmas tree anymore, and I went out and bought one of those silly aluminum trees with the, and she said to her father Charles had gone to the bar uh, on Friday night after he got off work before Christmas, and he had stopped to get a Christmas tree and had it tied on top of his car, and somebody stole it while he was
Oh
in the
no.
car. And so he went to the hardware store and got one of them aluminum trees, and how the kids were so disappointed, but they didn't want to hurt daddy's feelings. So they said, "Oh, isn't that beautiful?" and so forth. And they
Oh,
were
that's
so
funny.
disappointed. And I said, "Oh Lord, we did the same thing. We put up that damn tree." That's the colored lights, Oh,
Yeah, well, but the boys ended up having it in their bedroom. I
yeah.
remember I was just a toddler and how cool it was that they had it in their bedroom.
We didn't throw it out until we
No,
had
I
to.
didn't throw it out for a long time. Oh, that's
But
funny.
when it comes to the Advent season, there were some things that happened during that time. You remember, uh, I took this thing off of the wall. I don't know. You probably can't see it,
Oh
but
yes, the
this
snowflake.
this
Yeah,
is a snowflake, and we did that on Facebook here a while back. But it
yes.
was Granny Godsey taught us this little song. The snowflakes gave a party, and I thought that it might be, hmm, if I
Yeah,
can
see if you
see
can
it.
sing it.
The snowflake.
Oh, wait, I can't hear you. You're too far away from the microphone. You must have the microphone covered up.
I'm going to turn on the light.
That's a good idea.
Okay. Now this was a song that Grandma Godsey, who lived to be 90 years of age. I think it was 90.
I think so too. Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I think she lived to be 90. And she died, and in 1980 your mother and I put out this card with you and Brian and Joe and Debbie and Joshua and Jacob, and Dave was not with us at that time. We were out in Minot in 1980, and I made this uh, what do you call it, a linoleum block.
It was like a rubber block for the
Yeah,
stand.
it was a
Yeah.
called a linoleum block,
Yeah.
and I carved out a snowflake on it, and then we pressed uh, a very wet absorbent paper down over that, and made a embossed thing and signed it, so it's on the top part of this, and the song goes like this: the snowflakes gave a party out on the fields last night. There were ever so many invited. They all came dressed in white. Each came with a little carriage made of a tiny breeze. When drifted softly and slowly down with the most delightful ease. They played their queer little, they played their queer little ground games, stepping so soft and light to the sound of the cold, chilling breezes. They danced and danced all night. At first came the dawn of the morning. Sweet they sang their song. The fields that looked so bare and brown in soft white robes were dressed. Anyhow, it goes something
Yay.
like that.
And
And
didn't
Granny,
Brian write out the music for that?
Granny, Granny sang that song to us, and we had a tape recording of her singing it to us.
Yeah, turn the light off now.
And so Brian set the music down to the notes from that tape recording, and
Yeah.
that's how we did that.
That was a
Fun
fun
project.
project. That was a
And
fun,
I've got that in my office now up on the bookshelf for
nice.
everybody to see. And they'll say, "What's that?" And I have to tell them the story. But so there were some of those things that were done that were um, exciting to me as a youngster, and that I go back and hold very dearly. And we would do caroling. I remember Grandpa Adams, who had a stroke that left him where he couldn't speak. I've talked about that
Yeah.
earlier. And he just jabbered. And he was a young man. He was 46 years of age when he had that stroke and died when he was 60. But they were in desperate, we would say, deep poverty. Uh, he and Grandma. I saw a paper somewhere. Oh, it's in Grandpa French's songbook that I've got a thing where she wrote down for a while. Grandma wrote down for a while where they received a pension. It was like $12 a month or something like that. I don't know how long that lasted, but he did get a little pension.
Mm.
But uh, they would send people from the Presbyterian church would go down the alley and stand outside their house and sing to Grandpa and,
Oh,
and sing carols to Grandpa. And that was really nice. And they probably gave him a basket of fruit, I would guess. So I remember those things very pleasantly. Um, when we left the Pilgrim Holiness Church and I started college, and you were born right at that same time. Um, we were introduced to a more liturgically correct church. They did not use the lectionary in that little Methodist church. It was a Methodist Protestant church. It was the Mount Olive Methodist Church in Sweetser, Indiana, just outside of Marion, Indiana. And but they did have little booklets that they bought that were put out by the Methodist Church that had this ritual of lighting candles. And so your mother came up with an Advent candle situation. And we did that for years and years and years, clear up.
oh, I mean, that's kind of some of my earliest memories on Sunday nights during Advent. We'd all, after dinner, we'd sit around and we would, the boys took turns lighting the candles when they got older.
Yes.
You would tell us something about that week's theme
Yeah.
about Advent.
Yeah. And then that was a ritual that we did. Somewhere I couldn't find it, but somewhere I've got a photograph of Carrie, David's daughter,
Oh,
when she was about 4 or 5, and she's standing on a chair, and we're lighting the candles of the Advent wreath there at. That's when we were in uh,
McPherson.
Mount Comfort, Mount
Carrie?
Comfort, Indiana. Mhm.
Not Carrie.
Yeah, Carrie. Yeah,
David's Carrie?
David
Carrie would
Carrie.
not have been born in Mount Comfort.
Huh?
Carrie would not have been born when you were in Mount Comfort.
Uh, when was she born?
Well, not, she was born when you were living in McPherson. I can't hear you now.
When she was adopted. We were in Minot, weren't we?
No,
So
you've been in McPherson.
that must have been a McPherson then. Yeah,
Okay.
she was just a little thing. That's
Yeah.
why I can't find it. I can't figure out where it could be.
You're looking in the wrong stack. I would have been the one at Mount Olive.
Oh,
Carrie would have been the one at McPherson.
the old geezer here. Uh,
That's
but
why we're doing these videos so that.
that was kind of nice. And then remember the year that we did the banners?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Don't you still have those banners?
Joe has them now. Joe
Joe
wanted them. Yes.
and that was just when I did your mother and I had that was when we lived in Marion, I think.
Yes, when we were on Jeffress Street. We were on Jeffress. And I know that the boys each had, I know David had Joseph, I believe. You and I had the Happy Birthday Jesus.
No. Joe had Joseph because of his name.
Oh, because of his name. Okay.
David had um, Kings.
He had the with the hook.
And Brian had the shepherds.
Yeah. Okay.
You had Mary.
Well, yes, I had Mary, and then we also had a Happy Birthday Jesus one.
Happy Birthday Jesus.
And I remember you and I doing that. Well, I mean, I didn't really do very much because I wasn't old enough to really do anything. But I remember putting together the birthday cake and felt, you and I, and
yes,
and how I just thought it was so cool how you designed it and everything. It was just it.
And we had on the last night of Advent, the last Sunday of Advent, we had a birthday party for Jesus.
Yeah, we either would do it the last Sunday or Christmas Eve.
Yes. Yeah. So we wanted to be sure that we understood what that was all about.
Yep.
Even though we played the games about Santa Claus and the elves and so forth, but that was make believe and wonderful and fun. But we made sure that the celebration was a holy celebration. I think it's worthwhile.
Oh, I think so too. When I had my kids, we tried to carry on that tradition, and for some reason, I would be Ron and I would both do it because he remembered doing Advent too. He didn't necessarily do it at home, but he did it at his church growing up, and we would have the Advent wreath, and it worked for a while when the kids were really little, and then it just got to be where everybody was too busy. But
well, you had to enforce it. That's what I found.
Yeah, exactly.
We're going to do it. We're going to put up a Christmas tree. We're going to have an Advent wreath. That's just what we're going to do.
Yep.
Do you
remember? Ron and I still put up an Advent wreath, even though we don't necessarily like the candles.
Do you remember the Madonna, the statue of Mary that we had about this time?
Yes.
I think that got broken. I think that her nose got broken off or something.
Oh.
I don't remember what happened, but the person that gave that to me was Ernest Lawshe, who was the district superintendent, Dr. Lawshe, who was the man who baptized you.
Oh.
And he was my district superintendent in the Methodist Church. They were wonderful people. He every once in a while would slip me $100 bill and never tell me where it came from. But he must have had a slush fund or some but he would slip me $100 bill every once in a while, and he gave us that Madonna, and he pointed out that it was a Protestant Madonna because it didn't have a halo.
Well, I remember that being so delicate. It just, we had to be really careful with it. And of course, that could have been just, you and Mom scaring the shit out of us if anything happened to it. But I just remember it being.
It got, the nose got broken on it in one of our moves, I think. And
well, if you got that from him and he's baptizing me, I mean, that thing would be 60 years old now. So
yeah. It was a beautiful piece. The lines were so smooth, and it was all white, and the shadows and so forth on it would just look beautiful.
Exquisite, especially in the candlelight. She was beautiful. Yeah. I'd love to touch her because she was so smooth.
Yeah.
So So okay, the colors for Advent are purple, pink, and white, right?
Yes.
So there's 2 purple candles. No, 3 purple candles, 1 pink candle, and then the Christ candle is white.
That's correct.
So what did the
I
color
was afraid
each
you
of
was
those?
going to ask me that. There's the pink candle is the candle of joy, and that is usually the third candle, the third week is, and you're supposed to celebrate the joy of the season for that.
I
Then
always thought growing up that the pink candle, at least when we were doing it when I was little, was for Mary.
well, we might have,
I mean,
no,
growing up, I know that now it's
yeah,
hope,
joy,
peace, joy, and love.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
remember growing up, the candles represented the three wise men, the star, the three wise men, Joseph, Mary, and then Christ.
okay.
That's how but I don't know.
Well, we
You
may have done that.
know.
We did that with the banners, that's for sure. So we
Yeah.
probably picked it up from there. And then the Christ candle is supposed to burn clear through Christmas tide. And Christmas tide can be 2 weeks or 4 weeks, depending upon how the calendar fits. And I'm reading that book now that Caleb suggested that his dad and Jesse read, and I'm struggling with it now, called Infinitesimals.
Oh yeah, that I'm doing the audible of it. That's a hard book to.
Oh boy, our our book club is reading it, and I know there's going to be some pushback on that. I know there is, but
They're gonna go.
but
What were you
but
doing to us?
it has a lot to do with how the Gregorian um, calendar was imposed upon the world
Right.
and how that was done, and so the liturgical year goes clear back to that to the Gregorian time where they had to make the calendar the uh, the astrological things that have to do with the planets and the sun to
Right.
fit the theological insights of scripture, and so that's how they did it. It's amazing how they did that,
That is
and
amazing.
but that's why we have a difference in our calendars and so forth. That's why it's
Because there's some churches, I think they're what it Orthodox churches that do that recognize like January 6th as Christmas.
okay, but that they the reason for that is they celebrate the time when the Magi came to Bethlehem or came to the Holy Land, and Christ was revealed to the non-Jewish world, and so that is Epiphany, and the 6th of January is considered Epiphany in the Western Church, and in the Eastern Church, they took Epiphany as the nativity to celebrate the birthday of Jesus, because it's really the celebration of when Jesus was revealed to the whole world. So it has to do with the wise men. It has to do with that.
And
Just,
there's debate about how old Jesus would have been when that happened, right?
3 years old
3 years old.
is
So are there Eastern Orthodox Protestant churches, or are they all, or are they like Lutheran or Catholic?
Yeah,
Because
there wouldn't be Eastern Orthodox Protestant. There are Protestant churches in Greece that would be Christian churches in Greece that are Protestant. There are
one of
those.
one of Ron's cousins, her and her husband joined some. It must have been a Catholic. They joined some kind of Orthodox church where they didn't recognize December 25th as Christmas. And so they got to where they refused to come around for the Christmas celebrations
Yeah, yeah,
because we were celebrating it too early. And I'm like, what
yeah.
difference does it make? It's like,
Yeah, that's right. Celebrate whenever you want to.
exactly,
That's
exactly.
like these folks getting bent out of shape about whether they worship on Saturday or worship on Sunday. Say,
Right.
well, do both.
it's more important to
What's the
celebrate,
big
to
deal?
do it. Yeah,
Besides that, the calendar's been changed so many times that when is the seventh day, for crying out loud? I mean,
exactly.
I don't know.
So I know that, so when you were in seminary, was there any discussion about Advent or having any kind of ceremonies or?
No, no, they didn't do anything concerning that I can remember. They didn't do anything concerning the Advent liturgy. They did do some things concerning the liturgical year, so that we would understand what the Advent calendar was. Of course, the first Sunday of Advent is supposed to be the first Sunday of the Christian year. The year starts then, not January 1st. It starts on the first Sunday of Advent, and and so there was some discussion about that and about what was appropriate for celebrating that, and why the calendars were different and so forth. There
Oh,
was some,
interesting.
yeah.
So when you were at Mount Comfort, did you have like a congregational Advent wreath that you would
Oh
light?
yes. Oh
Okay.
yeah. Yeah. And then at Mount Comfort, we did we rigged up the our hi-fi. It wasn't a stereo, it was a hi-fi system. And I took it over to the church and plugged it in, and we played the Messiah, and then had incense burning and turned the lights all down, except for there were red drapes behind the altar. And so I robed up and stayed behind the altar. And as people came in, we were playing the Messiah, and we served them the sacrament at the altar, and then they would leave. And we did that. That was really quite
Wow, that's pretty. That does sound cool.
powerful.
Well, I know that since when I've become an adult, I know that it's been kind of the tradition to have Advent devotionals,
Yes.
and I don't know if that started about the time that I became an adult, but I know that the United Church of Christ does the pre-printed ones that people can buy, and then but when we joined Plymouth, as you know, they had a tradition where people in the congregation would write um, or write the
Devotional.
devotionals, and it would be some of the early ones I found were they wouldn't have every day, but they'd have like maybe once a couple a week or something, and those were kind of cool. And then when I got really involved in, I mean, the devotionals by the National Church are really good too. They're really powerful. But then I took it on as a project. I can't remember what department I was in, that we would do. I would organize the devotionals again, where people would write stuff, write something, and the response was tremendous. I remember.
I think we collaborated on a couple of those.
Yes, but before you even came and joined,
You
I
did
had
it
done it.
on
I
your
had
own.
done one, and I remember, Shanthia was like, "Oh, I don't know, Vicki, if you'll get enough people interested in doing it." I said, "Well, if we don't fill all the days, then we won't fill all the days." And I had more than enough, even that
Yes,
first year, to
yes.
fill every. And she was impressed. And then we did the year you joined. The year you were there, we did the one where we took a hymn, and because it used to be that we give someone a scripture passage and they would use that as their prompt to write something, then you and I did a hymn and used that as a prompt. And
Hymns out of the hymnal, and
yeah, that
there
was
there
a
were several there
tremendous.
are several for the Advent and Christmas hymns, and we did
Yes,
those
because you helped me pick out.
several.
And then the last one we did, uh, I picked places in the congregation, pictures of
In the
different parts
building.
of the church. And that was a really big hit too. And I remember the one that I had done like the first year or something, I can't remember what the passage was, but I was able to tie it into my work, and people in the church ended up sending it. I think it was Mary Powell sent out my devotional to some of her friends across the country.
Oh, how nice.
And I got a nice response back from people, and those were real fun. But then, towards the end, it just got to be a lot of work, and it was, and then we were doing it for Lent. That was more
It
challenging
is because it's longer.
because it's longer. And so Matt Bayhoff and I decided we wouldn't do it for Lent anymore. We would just do it for Advent, and then I moved away. So
they're not doing it, and I raised the issue a couple times. I did not say we ought to do it and I'll do it.
right.
That's what I should have done, but I didn't.
Well, that's just it. Unless you have somebody who's willing to do the kind of the hard work of, and it wasn't hard work. It was just keeping up with people.
It was rewarding work.
It was. I really enjoyed it.
People talent and to write good things and poems and so forth.
Yeah.
And I'm what was it, Tim Tuthill and
yes,
Linda Tuthill, and I suggested to him last week that he should submit some of his poems. That he shares his poems with me every once in a while, and I suggested that I'll share them with Christian Century Magazine.
oh,
and then I took him some copies of some poems that were there and said, "See, this is the kind of stuff they're doing, and your stuff is excellent. It is really good."
right.
And I see it as encouraging the spiritual exercise of within the congregation of doing that.
Right.
So I may.
Well, and I found it a kind of a good bonding exercise too, right? I mean,
Yeah.
The national stuff is really interesting and powerful, but those are people we don't know.
Yes, exactly.
And when someone within the congregation, you read something that's about them, I found it like the Tuthills. I don't think I would have ever met them or known them unless that's how I got to meet them.
And they're extraordinary.
They're extraordinary. Yeah. Both of them write beautiful poetry, him and Lincoln. So yeah. It was really fun. I figured this year's been kind of challenging for us here in Oklahoma City, but maybe next year I can offer to do something like that at Mayflower if Lori will let me.
It helps you to get to know the people in the congregation. Of course, as you know, I didn't know people in the congregation when I came here.
Right.
They called me Reverend Werneke several times before they figured out that's not what my name was.
Right, exactly.
But that's not the case now at all.
Good.
Very affirmed. Yeah. So Advent's been an important holiday for me and for my family, and
yes.
I feel like there was some good stuff that was done there. And I think I don't know what Joe is doing, but the very fact that he wanted those posters, and I know they celebrate Christmas. I know they do that.
I think he does something every Sunday for Advent, but I don't know if it's as formal as what he used to do his kids. But I know that he tries to, as best he can to kind of carry on the tradition a little bit. And I think Jake kind of knows, probably remembers it too, and that's a lot. But yeah, it's everybody, Fox News complaining about the war on Christmas, which is such bullshit. It's like, there is no war on Christmas. If families individually decide to celebrate and to
the war on Christmas is when I see somebody on the elevator and I say, "Have a happy holiday."
Right, exactly. I mean,
that's not a war on Christmas.
Exactly. And nobody is prosecuting Christians for being Christian.
My Jewish friends here in the condos will see me on the elevator and they'll say, "Happy Easter to you." And
Yeah.
Merry Christmas to you. You know, that was their way of saying that. And I'll see them and say Happy Hanukkah
Mhm.
and you know, blesses. May you have a blessed Rosh Hashanah. And you know, I tried to honor them and for where they are. And the whole Seder thing is a subject for another time.
Yes, we will definitely have to do that, especially
I've,
in
I've
light of.
wondered, I've wondered, Vicki, who might be interested in this box of Seder stuff that I have. I've got,
Oh,
I've got the things that I've written and the shofar that I got in Israel and um, uh, the horseradish root that I've still got
oh
that
my
I
gosh.
raised in High Point, and the lamb shank that I got when we were in Marion, and I've got all that stuff in a yarmulke that I got in Bethlehem. I've got all that stuff in a box, and I have used that. And Charlene and I are not doing that, and it would not be
Uh-huh.
appropriate for me to do that here and invite my Jewish friends to do it. You know, it would not be considered kosher, if you'll pardon the expression.
Right.
Uh, the, um,
Hmm.
they have invited us to come for the Seder, but Charlene doesn't feel comfortable in doing that. So uh,
Oh,
just
well,
have to.
remember we got invited to, well, you got invited to the Seder meal or one of the meals at Montefiore with mom. That you
Yes,
guys, there was
yeah,
something
yeah,
I was with you guys. We showed up in Christmas outfits, and it was it
yeah.
must, it must have been Hanukkah or something.
I think it was, yes. And when she died, she wanted the rabbi to be there with her.
Yeah, yeah, I remember that.
And
Yeah,
he was extraordinary.
it was.
He was there, and our pastor Dan was there as well.
Yep, yep.
So
That room was pretty crowded, but I don't remember. I don't really remember anybody else being there but you and me and her. But I know that Ron was there, Paul and Kate were there. I'd forgotten about the rabbi being there, and
yeah,
Dave
he
was
was.
there. But
Yeah,
mm, well, Christmas is always Mom's favorite time of year.
it was.
So I put up some Christmas lights out in the front on Friday, and it actually they're really big bulbs. They're really cute. I'll send you the picture. They were lights I had bought back in June for Pride month. I bought them at Target. I just never hung them up, and they work great for Christmas lights. And I put
Oh,
them
cool.
in the front. I had to really reach up, and it was like my arm is really hurting
Oh,
now. But it was really fun, and so we got Sarah came over after church and helped me get the Christmas trees out of the garage because they were way up high, and then I'm gonna put them up tonight, at least get them lit, and then work on putting the ornaments on them this
I
week.
don't know where we're going to put ours up. Charlie went out and bought a different tree, so we got two trees. And she said, the one we'll throw away. We got a new tree now. So,
Well, Sarah found us one last year that's real skinny, and it's going to work great
I think that's what you got as
in the
well.
front room.
Anyways,
It's going to work great in the dining room area,
funny.
right next to the church pew. So
Yeah, yeah. So, well, thanks for
yeah,
thanks for doing this.
it's kind of fun to reminisce about, and I know that I found it really meaningful as a kid that we did that all the time, and I know Joe did too. I'm pretty sure David and Brian did as well, but I know that Joe and I have talked about it. And I would tell my friends, "Oh yeah, we had a birthday party for Jesus," and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Well, yeah, Christmas is about his birth. We'd have a birthday party for Christmas for Jesus on Christmas Eve."
We sure did.
Yeah. Great job, Dad, of instilling that in us and creating those traditions. That was a good job on you and Mom's part.
Well, we enjoyed it.
It makes it
Helped
makes
in
the holiday
my life.
meaningful and enjoyable without having to do with presents.
Yes. Well, we did present, but
We did. And I remember many of my presents that were wonderful, but you know, those kind of ceremonies were more memorable every year than any of the gifts, other than the monkey for Brian and the guinea pig for Joe.
remember the Fred and Carolyn was keeping the squeaker for us, and the squeaker got into their Christmas tree and started throwing the bulbs off. Or Fred, he didn't know what to do. What a good one.
Oh, that was fun. That was fun.
Yeah.
All right, Papa. I love
Okay.
you.
Love you too. I hope you have a good week.
Yeah, yeah. I think
I
it's
go to tomorrow for his treatment again.
no, he goes on Tuesday. Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Last week was off because they're closed on Thanksgiving. They're only closed 2 days a year, Thanksgiving and Christmas. So they had to move. So he had a treatment last night, and this next treatment is Tuesday.
Okay. Well, people were asking, and I don't know if I told you that Mary and Doug
Yes.
Powell sent their love, and
And I got a text message from Paula uh, Sandstrom, whatever, Calder Sandstrom. You know, I could tell what part of the service it was at Plymouth, because she said, "May the peace of Christ be with you." It's like, we stayed home today, but I watched the service at Mayflower online because I was with my coughing. I didn't want to be in the church disrupting it. Ron has been really tired, so
take care of yourself, honey.
I will. All right. Give my love to Charlene.
You getting in that big snow?
No, we got a little bit of snow this morning, but it went away.
They said Kansas really got hit, apparently.
Oh. Ugh. All right.
Okay, well, take care. Love you.
I love you too. I will. Bye.